To be honest with you, it was by accident. I was a high school teacher and high school coach, and a young man in our school district, outstanding all-state athlete in 3 sports, but came from a broken home and was an okay student in the classroom, but needed some mentoring. So I had brothers who had gone through college, so I sort of knew a little bit about recruiting, enough to be dangerous, as my mom used to say. But they asked me if I would meet with him every day in the library during my prep period. A prep period is when teachers get ready, get their curriculum ready, get their programs ready for school. I taught health and physical education. And of course I said yes. I don't think no's in my vocabulary. So this young man was, being highly recruited. And so every day we met, and I can remember distinctly, at 11 o'clock in the library, in the back, we had a little cubicle that they had set up for us. And we went over all the materials he was getting from all the different schools. And for me, I said, now remember, wherever you choose to go, you don't have anybody that's going to do the time for you. You're going to have to be at practice. You're going to have to go to class. You're going to have to meet obligations. So you need to make sure you're going to a school where they give you the support academically and athletically so that you can be successful. And he goes, okay. So he weeded his schools down to 5. They would be considered Power 5 schools now, and went on 5 visits. And he called me one night from one of the visits. And he wasn't the kind of outgoing young man. He didn't party. He was sort of a homebody. And I said, what are you doing calling me? Are you okay? And he goes, yep. He goes, I'm sitting in a hotel room. It was like 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday. And I was like, are you sure you're okay? He goes, yeah, I guess. I just don't want to do the party scene, Miss Goff. It's just not me. I said, okay, that's fine, as long as you're okay. He goes, I'll talk to you about it on Monday when I see you in school. I said, okay. So when he made his 5 official visits, he said, I need to stay close to home because my uncle, who had adopted him, I want him to be able to come and see me. But his uncle's high school coach was now the head coach at one of the 5 schools, and he was trying to get him to convince his nephew to come because his uncle was an outstanding student athlete. So he landed at Pitt, and I met Jackie Sherrill and Johnny Majors. They were the head coach and the assistant head coach. And they said, what can we do for you? I said, there's nothing except promise me that this young man will get his college degree the right way. He will have a good academic experience along with the athletic experience. That's all I asked of you. And if he has issues, feel free to call on me if I can help you. That's all I said. Well, that was April. In August, I get a call from the women's athletics director at the University of Pittsburgh. And she introduced herself, Sandy Bullman. She goes, we are looking for an assistant track coach, and you come highly recommended. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, I'm pretty happy being a teacher and a coach. She goes, oh, it's part-time, so you don't have to give up any of that. And that's how I got into college athletics, because Jackie Sherrill and Johnny Majors recommended me to the women's athletics director. I was not looking to get into it. I was happy doing what I did, had a successful high school track program. We had one of the best programs in the WPIL, which was our governing body, and I just enjoyed what I did, And I was a mother of a young man. My son was 6. My husband had died 2 years earlier, so I wasn't thinking about going off to college. So purely by accident and contact and helping somebody else out. It was tough. I loved my student athletes. I loved coaching. I loved the interaction with the other student athletes on the campus. So, but I had my son. He was my priority, always has been, always will be. And I was starting to miss some of his activities. And I came home and he had had a band concert and I had missed it. Now, this kid was very talented on the drums, and he was the student conductor for the band in 6th grade. And he goes, Mom, I really miss you when you're not at my events. I said, okay, you don't have to tell me that again. I went into my boss and told her at the end of this track season in the spring, I'm going to have to resign because I need to be home for my son. And she goes, wait, before you resign, can I talk to you about administrative position that I've created? I said, yeah, talk to me about it. It was more money than coaching. It allowed me to pretty much have a 9 to 5, 9 to 4 job. I was on the road, and I was still able to interact with the student athletes that I loved. Because giving up coaching was the toughest thing I've ever done, seriously. And you don't know how I agonized the first few years when I'd see those kids that I'd recruited, and I'd like the itch. I need to be at practice. I need to be recruiting. But you get over that, and administration gives you an opportunity to provide services for all of the student athletes and all of the coaches. So when I transitioned, I accepted the offer, but I said before I officially sign a contract, I need to discuss this with my son. And I talked to Anton about it. He goes, Mom, does that mean you won't be traveling as much? I said, yes. I will be home every day at a regular time. I'll be able to see all your basketball, football, all that, be at your band concerts. And he says, okay. But then, and I always laugh about this, he said to me, okay, because you're an administrator now, do your football tickets get better? And they did, because coaches were sitting on the 35-yard line, administrators sitting on the 45-yard line. And he goes, oh yeah, we definitely need to have you take that job. So I always tease him that all of my coaching and administrative decisions at Pitt were based upon where my football tickets were going to be. So that's how I made it. But it was, over the years, probably the best move I made in my career. Many more opportunities for women as far as the number of sports. The financial support for women has definitely increased. Facilities have gotten better. When we first got going in the NCAA and AIAW, we were playing in rinky-dink gyms and fields weren't that good and all that good stuff. But when Title IX hit, that changed. It took it a while, but it definitely was the basis for what we have today. Probably the one thing that I regret see happening was Title IX gave us, as females, lots of opportunities. And when I got into it, 95% of the women's programs were coached by women. You can't say that today. You could count on your hand probably how many men were coaching. At Pitt, we had the swim coach, how sad is it I can exactly remember, the swim coach and the volleyball coach. All the other coaches were women. So that has changed. That has changed. And I say that with a little tongue-in-cheek, some of it's our fault as women, and some of it is partly the money got better and men started applying. And the people that were doing the hiring for women's sports were no longer women, but men. Because when I got into college athletics, there was a women's program and a men's program. There was a women's athletics director and a men's athletics director. And then when we left AIAW and joined the NCAA, then the AD position for the women sort of went by the wayside. They became the senior associate, the number 2, and the male, because predominantly men were ADs at that time, and took over all the programs. So Title IX has done a lot of good things, but it also hurt us in some areas for growth of women leadership. Having to tell a person on my team that I couldn't give them the financial aid that I knew they needed, had earned, I could give them some, but not all. I was fortunate that I was at a very good school who believed in promoting women's athletics, and I had the same budget as the men's track program. I had the same number of assistant coaches. So I had a lot of things that my counterparts at other institutions did not have. It was maybe a 1 or 2 person operation. But I don't think I ever felt good about telling a Rachel, a Mary, a Sandy, I can't give you what I know you deserve, But you know what? My kids, they graduated, which is what, if you finished 4 years in my program, you had a degree. I am so proud of where my young women who are now quite old, and it's hard for me to believe that they're that old as they are, because I still think them as kids, what they've done with their lives. I've been fortunate to go back to the University of Pittsburgh and see a great number of them honored, the Hall of Fame, the Walk of Fame, all the different programs, alumni, honoree, all that good stuff. So that's a positive. The only thing really, really negative, and I laugh, I said, if I could do anything different with my own career, is probably negotiate my salaries better. But I was just so excited to be a part, to see the success, that I was good. You know, I had enough money in my mind that I could take care of my son, take care of his needs, and we'd be okay. But as I think about that, I think the majority of the women in college athletics, when we first started out, we all did that. You know, we were just happy to be on the ground floor. Somebody wants us to be your head coach, and we ran with it. Nothing but positive. Even though I said on the negative side, it's the money, but that wasn't a Title IX issue. Women getting opportunities, providing young women that came through our programs with other opportunities as other than what their particular major offered. You know, today you take a major, but most likely you're not working in that career. When I was growing up and I went off to college, our options were you could be a teacher, you could be a nurse, you could be a secretary, or you could be a mom. Nobody encouraged us to be a doctor or a lawyer or a physicist or a professor, none of that. When I went off to college, it was interesting that at my alma mater, the only women I saw in a classroom were the PE instructors that I had. My other academic, my geography, my speech, nothing but males. And nothing against it because I got a great education at Slippery Rock. I tell people all the time, if I had to repeat something in my life, I would repeat going back to Slippery Rock. I got a great education and a very strong foundation that allowed me to do the things that I ended up doing as a career. My mantra is each one reach one. And I've said that all my life. I learned that in Sunday school. And what that means to me, as I'm going up the steps, I'm reaching back to help somebody come up those same steps. The one thing I remind people of, sometimes we bring people up and they're on our level, and then we push them up and they go past us. But that's okay, because that's what we're supposed to do. Because all of us, no matter what career you're in, you're standing on somebody else's shoulders. The shoulders I stand on are my parents and the women that taught me at Slippery Rock. And I've lost a few of those. My parents obviously have died, but they always told me, don't be afraid to be challenged. If you believe you can do something, then go after it. And don't let anyone ever tell you what you can't do. And that was my dad. And neither one of my parents had a college education. In fact, they didn't even have high school education. They were older parents. My dad was born in the South. My mother was born in Pennsylvania. But they encouraged all their children to be the best that they could be. An example, there were 5 minorities in my graduating class of 148 students. I was the head majorette. You know, because they felt I was the best one. A long time at college, high school, and even in my career, I was the only one in the room. And sometimes that got a little strenuous, but I said, if I'm not in the room, how can I help somebody else get into the room? And it didn't mean that it had to be a black or Hispanic. I just wanted to make sure I was helping others. And I've never stopped wanting to help people. You know how I feel about my Horizon League family. You guys call, I'm there, because you guys do things the right way. And I'm happy to say that maybe I had a little portion of that when I was here working, not with you specifically, but with the Christines, the Julies, the Beths that are still here, the Cams that were here, Kyle, and they've all gone on to do great things. That to me, I can say, they got the message, they've worked hard, and they're achieving great things. You guys make me proud of you. I wanted women to have a voice, especially women of color. So one of my best friends She worked at Eastern Kentucky, and she called me and she said, we had served on a track and field committee together, National Track and Field Committee, and she goes, you should join this organization. And I was like, well, tell me about it. She goes, well, it's women leaders, women leading, most of them were SWAs. We had a few athletic directors, but they were D2, D3. At that time, we hadn't had any female D1 athletic directors yet. That was to come a little later down the road. And so I sat around the table, and first meeting, I just listened. And then I realized I can add something to this group. And I got involved in committees, and eventually, be careful what you wish for. I joined the board, and then I got nominated to be a president. And under my leadership, we made some changes in what we do today, the convention. It wasn't a convention, it was a forum. And I said, if we want people to take us serious, then we need to take ourselves serious. So we'll go from the NACWA forum to the NACWA convention. And also during that time, right before me, we changed the name from the CCA to the Women's NACWA. And then the most recent change is, of course, the Women's Leaders. They've helped make women more visible in the leadership roles. Not so much with coaching, but actual administration. The number of women that are sitting in the leadership role, either as an AD, a senior associate, or a deputy, or even in just any job that they go after, women's leaders will be there to support them. And I think the programming, I started a program here, I don't know if you're aware of it, the Women's Leadership Symposium started right here with the Horizon League. John came in from a meeting with his presidents and said, I've got a proposition for you. I said, okay, what is it, John? He goes, we had 4 women presidents on our board, unheard of, but we had 4 very strong women. And at the meeting that he had just held with them, they said, John, we need your office, to do a developmental program for our women in our athletic programs, because we don't feel they're getting that type of development. He goes, gotcha. He came in, he talked to me, and he goes, and I want you to lead it. I was like, okay. So I ran with it and worked with my SWAs, and we developed a program. And it was quite successful, well received by our membership. It was only for Horizon League membership. But I had enough of the women that, big time women who were leaders in athletics come in and donate their time and their services and to help, get information out. So we did that program every 2 years, but we moved it so we could now encompass some other women in our region. And we ended up joining with the Big Ten and the MAC. And those 2 commissioners were good friends with John, and they agreed that this is something we need to do and support. So each conference committed X number of dollars, and then we got some sponsors. So because we didn't want people to have to pay to come, but we needed to have, some resources because we were feeding them and that sort of thing. But it's things like that that I was able to do, and then I turned it over to women's leaders, to Patty Phillips. And I said, the only thing I ask you to do is take care of my baby. And because we had reached 200 women in 1 year. And she goes, well, we've got some ideas how we can expand it and reach out. And I love what they're doing. They do more with the entry level, like first year to maybe fifth years of service. And it's just wonderful. And they continue to do the executive level coaching and the executive level programming. I went through a couple of those programs and just wonderful. So they do a really good job of promoting women and women helping each other. And Patty's just phenomenal. All of the leadership has been phenomenal. We've had some great presidents, but the director, the CEO, who Patty Phillips is now, she's just knocked it out of the park. But she will tell you, I stand on the shoulders of the 2 women that held this position before I did. First of all, by the number of women that work in this office. John was always aware of, we want the best person, but if I can get a woman, that's what I want to do. Because he realized that women's sports was just growing by leaps and bounds. And he wanted to be on the forefront. Anything we did in the Horizon League, John wanted to be, let's get out there, let's get this done. Our Horizon League network was the first. When we used to tell our coaches, now you can tell your parents and your student athletes, they can watch you every game. And it was the truth, because we were streaming on, internet. And then, of course, we expanded our partnership with ESPN and that sort of thing. But I just felt John's leadership, and I always say, out of all the people I worked for, he was the best one for thinking out of the box. And, he never wants to take credit for anything. He goes, oh, it's always about you guys. But believe me, he, as the old folks say, he was the brains behind the operation. And he's highly respected, too, in athletics. That was the other thing, because he could call on people to, what do you think about this? And they'll say, yeah, well, we'll do that with you, and, good partnerships, yeah. Because women outnumber men in attendance. Women, even men, if you walk into a room and you're the only female, you don't see anyone else that looks like you. Makes it kind of difficult to have a voice. It's important because women need to know the history, which I always laugh. You say Title IX and you get the strange look. You say AIAW. Most the young athletes don't know. A lot of administrators don't know. Some of the greatest women administrators founded AIAW. And it's the scales have sort of, it used to be men, women. It's going this way. You want to know why? Because men have become girl dads. My son has 2 daughters, heavily involved in athletics. Now, he gets it because he's in athletics. But the parents who aren't in athletics as a living or as a career, they get it because they want the same opportunity for their daughters that their sons are getting. So that's why women in leadership position, because most young people through Little League and what have you, who are they being coached by? Men. So we've got to provide some leadership when they get to us, opportunities. And then we need to encourage our young women to go out and be leaders. I don't know, I look at all the officials on all the sports. We're slowly but surely breaking that football and men's basketball, but we still see a lot of men officiating women's sports. So I need more women out there in the black and white stripes. I need more women coaches on the sidelines. We've got to do a better job of educating our young women from the time they step on our campuses about the history. We don't have to beat them up with it, but they should at least know it, that when they hear Title IX, they know what it means, other than IX. Because you can make a difference. This career in athletics, and like you said, there's all types. You can be a coach, you can be an administrator. Look at the different opportunities, like you're in communications. What are we seeing on TV? More women on the sidelines, more women behind the mics. 20 years ago? They were few, far, and in between, So I think that a lot of our women are, as a student athlete, don't realize what the opportunities are in athletic programs. The business world, the communications world, which is massive, event management, game operations, So you don't have to be an AD, you don't have to be the commissioner, you don't have to be, the head coach. There are so many opportunities, and not just at the collegiate level, high school level, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, National League Hockey, all of it. We're seeing more GMs that are female in the pros. So there's all kinds of career opportunities, but we need to make them aware of those opportunities. Officiating. How much money officials make? They make a pretty good piece of change. And, some of them, that's all they do. When you get to some levels, that's all they do. So it's a career. So, yeah, I think it's important that we continue to educate. Well, I think the better the facilities, which obviously they're grown by leaps and bounds. I think the opportunity for more women, and educate our men. I'm not against men working with women, but I don't want it to be a stepping stone or a phase. I want you to be committed to, spend 15, 20 years in the business, working with women. A lot of the male coaches, some of them have stepped aside. That's what they did, especially in basketball. We're losing a lot of our quote-unquote pioneers in women's basketball because that's the premier sport. Vivian Stringer just stepped down. We've lost a few through death. Pat Summitt, I had the pleasure of working with her. Great woman. But they've left their mark. But that mark needs to be lifted up. We don't want that to fade away. And so we have to continue to listen to the past, enforce what we can, present, and be ready for the future. That is important. I think women's athletics is not going away. Men's athletics will not go away. But how we're treated, how we're looked at, will be very, very important. I always tell young people, when you graduate, you will always represent your university. Because now you're Rachel Smith from alumni, high, or your high school, your college, whatever. I am just over the top at the level of athleticism with women. I'm blessed with 2 granddaughters that are pretty athletic. And when I go, the youngest one is a gymnast, and the oldest one plays volleyball and runs track. Yes, that was mom's sport, grandma's sport. And but when I watch our female athletes today, I'm just amazed at what the skills that they have. I remember being excited as a track coach when I recruited a 6-foot high jumper. Now that was in 1977. That was big stuff. Now it's like, I watched USA Track National Championships. 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". I'm like, are you kidding me? How fast they're running. Look at their bodies. Because when I got into it, we didn't weight train. We didn't. Because women were not to have muscles. Some of the things that they used to say about women athletes, you have to sort of just laugh now. Give you an example. When I was running track in the club at Slippery Rock, we weren't allowed to run over an 800. Now our young ladies run 1,500, 5,000, 3,000, 10,000. They run marathons because running long distance would hurt your reproductive organs, quote unquote. This was in the 60s. So we've come a long way. And now you see women having babies and coming back and still being great at what they do, So I'm always excited to see records being broken and just see the growth, to see somebody who came in and ran this time as a freshman, and then by the time they were a senior, they're a national champion. That's what excites me. And all that's because we have Title IX. And I know there's people who would like to eliminate Title IX, which is sad. But there's naysayers out there that they feel Title IX is taken away from the men, and that is not the case. If any sports were removed, it was the decision of the administrators at that institution, not Title IX.